Today I am going to tell you how I take care of my Arizona Blonde Tarantula. So let's jump right into it. The Aphonopelma chalcodes, or the Desert Blonde or Arizona Blonde Tarantula, is a New World terrestrial opportunistic burrower that comes from the southern Arizona and northern Mexico area. The A. chalcodes are famous for their blonde hairs and chill demeanor. Females are usually a solid tan color, while males normally have black legs, a copper-colored carapace, and a reddish abdomen. This is an extremely slow-growing species that can take years to reach maturity. These tarantulas can grow up to about a 5-inch leg span, with males living between 6 to 8 years, while females can easily live over 25 years in captivity. The husbandry for this species is very typical of most New World terrestrials, so you will want to provide an enclosure with more width than height. As spiderlings, I keep mine in a tarantula crib spiderling enclosure, or a cube, or a similar sized terrarium, and provide plenty of substrate and a hide, as they do like to burrow, especially when this small. I keep the substrate dry and provide a little water dish or drop water on the side of the enclosure so they can drink when thirsty. About once a week or so, I will moisten the substrate in the corner, then let it dry out. For juveniles, I move them into a Tarantula Crib's juvenile enclosure, either the small sliding terrestrial enclosure or cube style, and provide them with a hide and water dish, ensuring there isn't too much height as to avoid them climbing the walls and falling down, risking rupture. And as adults, I keep them in a Tarantula Crib large terrestrial sliding door enclosure with the lid that comes with the extra ventilation holes for plenty of air circulation. They seem to thrive on dry substrate like the Biodew Terra Arnea, but even cocoa fiber will work for this species if you don't mind all the dust and possible mushroom growth, common when using straight cocoa fiber. I always include a hide and water dish and fill the enclosure at least halfway up, but no more than 2/3 high with substrate to provide plenty of room to burrow and keeping the space between the top of the enclosure and the floor no more than 2 times the leg span of the spider to avoid any damage if they were to fall from the top. I keep this species at the same room temperature as most of my spiders, which is between 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, though you can keep your slings at a slightly warmer temperature in an attempt to have them grow a little faster. Just be careful not to go much warmer than 78 degrees Fahrenheit, and always be sure they have a water source available in warmer temperatures. But typically, if you're comfortable, your spider will be comfortable. Now, if you're interested in picking up an Aphonopelma chalcodes, or really any species of tarantula, I highly suggest you check out the sponsor of today's video, microwilderness.com. Nate and his team at Micro Wilderness are amazing and very friendly, and honestly one of my favorite businesses in the hobby. They have an amazing selection of Aphonopelma, Brachypelma, and Grammostola species, in addition to a great selection of many other tarantulas. They also have jumping spiders, scorpions, millipedes, and even some reptiles and amphibians. And I recently had Nate on my podcast, The Exotic Pet Collective, where he told us all about some of his North American tarantula breeding projects and how he is committed to return a certain percentage of all native species back to their locations here in the States. So if you want to support a breeder that not only supports the tarantula hobby, but wild tarantula populations as well, as opposed to some of these larger dealers that just exploit the hobby for their own financial gain, then head over to microwilderness.com and use the code TTC10 at checkout to save 10% off your entire order. Thanks again, Micro Wilderness, for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to this care and husbandry. When it comes time to feed, I feed my smallest slings confused flower beetles, cricket legs, or pre-killed tiny crickets twice a week. As they grow larger, I feed them small crickets or roaches at least once a week, depending on the size of their abdomen. Once they're juveniles, I feed them 1 or 2 medium crickets once a week or so. And when they're adults, I will typically feed them 5 or 6 large crickets every 2 to 3 weeks. But these are just rough guidelines to follow, and I always base my decision on the amount and frequency on the size of their abdomen. When the abdomen is smaller than the carapace, I feed more prey more often. And when the abdomen plumps up and starts exceeding the width of the carapace, I will cut back and feed less prey less often, until the tarantula enters premolt. One thing to note with this species is that they are prone to go on hunger strikes and may not eat for weeks or even months at a time, especially when weather begins to get cooler. For example, my smallest sling didn't eat once all last winter. This species is usually very docile and calm, but the temperament can differ between individual tarantulas and even between molts of the same tarantula. Though they tend to be relaxed, these Ts can be defensive and kick hairs, show a threat pose, and even bite. So always check the temperament of your tarantula before attempting to handle them. I will link a video above with tips on how to handle your tarantula if you so feel inclined. But always remember to handle at your own risk, or more accurately, at your tarantula's risk. The Desert Blonde has very mild venom, and the danger of handling is more for the tarantula than the human. If the T were to suddenly bolt while you are holding them, there is a great risk of a fall and the abdomen rupturing. So if you decide to handle your spider, always try to handle them over a table or while sitting on the floor, so the distance of a fall will be greatly minimized. This is an amazing species and a perfect tarantula to add to your collection, whether you're a beginner or even a more experienced keeper. Don't overlook this tarantula just because it is a native species to the US. It is always tempting to gravitate towards the exotic and brightly colored Ts from other countries. But there are plenty of amazing species right here in America. This is a gorgeous display tarantula and a perfect addition to any collection. And I highly recommend everyone keep at least one at some point. If you want some in-depth information on the location, environment, and life of the Arizona Blonde Tarantula, then check out this nature documentary style video I made on this species. As always, I appreciate you watching. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks for buying Tarantula Collective merchandise, and I will see you next Tuesday.